Hello, this is Pastor Castro. I'm here today with Mark Haskins, Inspector of Police, and Michelle Francis, an amazing community activist. And we've got some profound interest to share with you that I believe it's things that you relate to and you want to have some answers to. There's a massive increase in gun violence in our city, and we have several references just to tease your mind to show you the concern. December 20th, a drive-by shooting on the 401 in Pickering injured three people, held up the 401 for several hours of the day. On Friday, February 10th, three teens arrested, combined with 64 charges related to a series of carjackings in Whitby, Pickering, Ajax area. Firearm was involved in that also. February 14th, two boys, 15, 16, arrested for a string of violent crimes, including a bank robbery. And of course, we have a list of other crimes that have become so much more prevalent in our city. And with these two amazing individuals today, I'd like to see if we can build what we call a church community connection to see if we can stem and help to mitigate some of these issues. So, Jeff, if you could weigh in on this for us, why are we seeing this happening, and what have you seen on the beat that you believe could help us either understand better or come up with some help to change the situation?
Certainly, thank you. First of all, I'm happy to be here with the other panelists, and there has certainly been a perceived and a real changing nature of harm in our community. And you know, when I speak from, I'm going to reference the Durham regional area, but obviously we're starting to see a number of the violence touch many other people in the community as well in the surrounding Greater Toronto area. The challenge is that we're starting to see an increase in the use of a firearm in some of the crimes that are being committed, although for a number of years there was a decrease in violence overall. We're starting to now see a slight increase, an uptick in crime, but what's more concerning is that we're starting to see a firearm being used in the commission of an offense on a more frequent basis. This is a challenge to figure out as to why. There's a number of things that contribute to what a safe community looks like.
Tell us about some of that.
So,
at least what you perceive it to be.
You know, the biggest thing about community is that most people don't grow up thinking that I'm going to pursue crime as a business or get involved. In most cases, a lot of people find themselves in these situations by circumstance. And those are the circumstances where I think from a community perspective that we can prevent people from going down a path or help them steer clear of those paths. And that's where community mobilization comes into action. You know, more recently we have began to collaborate with a number of different public safety agencies to try and holistically deal with how crime manifests itself and how things go from petty crimes into more violent crimes and then to crimes where people think that the only alternative for them is to take somebody else's life or to use a firearm as a way of defending themselves or even thinking that they need to access a firearm.
Yeah. Now, as we talk about this, one of the things you mentioned is community mobilization. And for yourself, Michelle, you're pretty active in that area. And I think if our community begins to act like a community with watchfulness and care and humanity and compassion, then I believe that may help to lower some of the possible outcomes. Tell us what you've experienced and what are some of the suggestions you have for that.
Well, I would really like to see community get back to that place of community. And in times where we're not faced with crisis, right, and then we band together, but we still have that sense of watching over somebody else's child when we see them in the community, if they're, doing wrong, or when they're doing well, praise them. It doesn't have to be your child to praise someone else. And so where I'm seeing that we have a lot of changes, we have busy lifestyles as adults. And we spend a lot of time in transit. And so therefore our children are out there maybe not getting the right influences that we would like them to have. So that's where our surrounding community really can lift each other up. As I was growing up, we had tremendous community mentors. And I myself knew that if I had gotten into something that my parents wouldn't have appreciated, I had the neighborhood pastor who was looking and saying, your mother wouldn't like that, or I had the neighborhood community member in a retail store, keeping an extra eye out for me.
Now you're engaged in the community neighborhood watch program. Tell us a little about that and how the community can get involved and what does that
look like?
Right.
Okay, so we started when I moved into Durham region. I came here early 2002. By 2003, there was a home fire, and unfortunately, one of our community members lost 2 of their children. Mm-hmm. At that time, we created, meaning me, myself, mobilizing the community, so community partners, to create Spirit in Community. And that was just a sense of we have to get back to this place where we're caring about one another, not just protecting our own areas and our own backyards. And that evolved now to become under the umbrella and auspices of the Neighborhood Watch program. Mm-hmm. And so what that looks like is just people keeping an eye out. So if you hear, for instance, a dog barking 24 hours a day, there might be something wrong with its owner. Yeah. There might be something wrong with the dog, for that matter. Right. But if you haven't seen a community member at a usual place, maybe you consistently go to the library and you see that person. Maybe it's time to check on them. So it's just as simple as that. Yeah. And now, if we have cause to be out in the community, and we notice something that's awry, a fence that is down, a gate that is busted, lights that are off, we have the opportunity just to make mention. And that mention could be made both to our city hall, it could be made to maintenance workers who work in that general area we see. It is that simplistic.
So one of the things that I've discovered, and we've spoke about that before, Jeff, is that there seem to exist a lot of gaps in our local community. Mm-hmm. So people may fall to the crack, or we're not able to solve problems, even though there are other great agencies and grassroots agencies, but they're not always synchronized. Tell us a little bit about what you've noticed with the gaps, and maybe we can talk a bit more about how we can help to bridge those gaps.
Yeah, what happens for us is that we work with many other public safety and public sector agencies to try and provide a holistic service to this community.
And I think what I want to emphasize this, maybe Jeff can speak to it, that arresting a person is not really a solution, although it's a part of the issue. But
usually by that time, if we've got to the point where we've had to arrest something has fallen through the cracks in terms of intervention or being able to offer some assistance to someone or somebody's family. So there are a number of different programs that we have where we work collaboratively with other agencies to try and address some of the risk factors that people can show. Some are based on socioeconomics, some are based on mental health. Mm-hmm. And by working collaboratively, we have determined that you're right, there are a number of gaps in our community. So for instance, for people who are precariously housed, mm-hmm. or are couch surfing or are homeless, mm-hmm. quite often we, as a downstream agency, as a police service, we are the downstream agency. We will be called to a circumstance involving somebody who may be without housing. And we, in this community right now, we don't have a lot of alternatives to offer people assistance. So those are the gaps in terms of shelter systems that exist. The other, if you are homeless and you want to go and have a shower somewhere, quite often some of those gaps are that when you go and have a shower, you don't have clean clothes to put on, mm-hmm. or you don't have a towel or items to shower with. Mm-hmm. The reason I talk about people who are homeless first is because the basic issues of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't have food and shelter, then when you start to try and look at other things to for you to reach your full potential, it's very difficult. And so that is the challenge that we're trying to address. And we, in Ajax and Pickering, we are working towards specifically making sure that people have the basic needs that they need, because then we can start to address some of the more complex issues that exist.
All right. So one of the areas that I think I'm really impressed with, and I look forward to the partnership to bridge the gap, because I think that's we operate as independent silos, and as a result, I'm doing something, you're doing something, you're doing it, but we don't know what we're all doing.
That's right.
We may end up duplicating the same service and ignore some essential services. So for me, this church community connection, to me, it's giving the gospel life. It is giving people the hope, that leg up that you talked about, so that whatever we contribute, it can help someone. One of the things that we look to do here in March the 13th, March the 12th to the 15th, we're doing a conference called Transformation in the city of Pickering, and we'll be hearing more from these panelists and other community involved personnel. And we're going to be looking at and exploring ways that we can bridge the gap at a grassroots level. And I believe there are many of our business people, politicians, law enforcement personnel, educators who share this passion about building a safe and sustainable, healthy community. One of the things that we look forward to doing is with Michelle, you do, and I know we're wrapping up here for time, but you're promising in the spring a garden deal. Tell us a little bit about that as we wrap this up.
So one of the things that we've noticed is in trying to deal with some of the grassroots challenges is having healthy food for people to eat. And so some
Which is
years,
a part of the gap, right? Homelessness, food essentials, right?
Absolutely. And so some years ago, we started a community garden in a small little area on a cul-de-sac, and we realized that the uptake of children being involved and interested in eating vegetables and healthy food came from them participating in this gardening event opportunity. So we emerged out of that, Living Green Community Gardens. And we have been supporting our neighborhood to create gardens and showing them how and to take care of. We were so fortunate to receive a sustainability award from the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, and we're moving forward to create more community gardens. This is one of the ways that we can contribute to.
So in this, do you provide the seeds? And
so we have seeds, we have equipment. We've had a number of stakeholders come towards us, retailers and big box retailers, to support us in achieving this. And we have no shortage of young people who are curious about what we're doing, and therefore through the college programs, which gives them an opportunity to come and help us also do this, and where community members and educators can meet on a common ground and enjoy nature. We get only a few months of summer, so.
And this is one of the things that we're looking for to do on a piece of the land that we have here on the church grounds, to see if we can build our community and bring us to a stronger sense of unity. We're not just about the gospel. The police force is not just about arresting. We're looking to build a strong, healthy community where young men will know that guns, violence, it's not the answer. And the factors that would probably drive to that, be it homelessness or hunger or whatever it may be, lack of education, hopefully we can help to mitigate those and give you something that will change your life. So I would like you to join us March the 13th, the Friday night of the conference. We'll be continuing with some of these discussion. If you've got questions about gun violence, crime in the area, how to solve some of these problems, please save them. You'll find our email address, or you can send them forward to us. And in our panel discussion on March the 13th, we'll address some of those. Thank you again for tuning in. God bless you, and you have yourself a safe weekend.